the smartest, the smartest white man on this side of heaven is here today. Every last Tuesday of the month, Bill Lockwood is here. And Bill is a writer, radio host at American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. He's also a teacher at Wichita Falls, Texas, and preacher of Our Park Church of Christ. And I am honored that my friend, our friend, or the whole world friend, is here today. Bill, how you?
Good. How are you doing today, Jesse? Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for being here. Very interesting times in our country and in the world, really. I wanted to talk to you about the dictator in Canada, and what's happening in America and how you're seeing things. But first, I want to ask, last time you were here, Nick did write that question down. What the? Hold on, let me update my package view. I forgot exactly.
Okay.
I did update Nick, but it's not there. So last time you were here, Bill, you expressed that you had little hope that America would get better. I didn't know what you meant by that, and there are other people wondering that listen to the show. Are you able to tell us what did you mean by it? Do you remember that?
I do. I've said that many times, and so I do recall it.
And so what do you mean by you have little hope that America will get better?
Well, as far as the entire country, the whole country as a whole, I don't see us coming together. In order to get better, we have to be able to come together, and we have to work together. But we are more polarized now than we ever have been. Plus, we have a government in Washington, D.C. that is acting as an oligarchy and actually is getting by with it and is completely at war with the American people. I don't see
Bill,
how...
I'm sorry. Hold on for a minute. We have some technical issue on somebody
okay.
in.
I think it's his reception.
His
reception.
Tell him in the mic.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, okay. You're back. There
Can
you
hear
go.
me now?
Oh, yeah. I see. What
Okay.
happened was the picture itself went real small. It went backwards. But go ahead.
That's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
We're fine now.
Well, first of all, I'm just pointing out the fact that we are more polarized now than we ever have been. It's not
You
just
did it again,
polarization.
Bill.
Uh-oh.
Don't touch anything, Bill.
No, I'm not touching. No, my hands are in my lap.
Out in the middle of nowhere, right?
Oh, okay.
I think it's just, Bill, I think it's just your, maybe the reception where you're at is just affecting the picture a little bit. But it looks okay right now. The sound is fine.
Okay.
And it looks okay right now. So we'll just go with that.
Yeah, we're fine right now.
Well, you know what? We have some bad weather going on right now. I mean, it was overcast, and it's yeah,
it got again.
winter weather. So anyway, yeah, it's not the clearest skies.
Okay.
So, at any rate,
Go
we
ahead.
pick up at the beginning.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm just pointing out that we're more polarized now as a nation than we ever have been. And it's not just polarization. We're so far apart that we're really at war with one another. I mean, there's not any coming, just generally speaking, there's very, very seldom do we see anybody coming together and getting along on a political or religious area. That's just very, very seldom any longer.
Yeah.
But much more than that. That's just on the streets. We have in Washington, D.C., an oligarchy that's ruling. That is a ruling class of a few. And they are not simply not following the law. They're not simply disregarding the law of America. They're completely at war with the United States of America. They're completely at war with the American people. Specifically, think about the border. Specifically, think about shutting down the pipeline, as Biden did, and hooking us back into a world system in order that we might suffer as we are now suffering and be hooked into a globalist system. the direction of government, if you think about the direction of government that was under Trump and direction of government that is under Biden, it's completely 180 degrees.
Yeah.
When Trump was in office, it's not like we're just going to tweak it a little bit and go a little bit more liberal policy. We changed directions 180 degrees, and we're going back in a globalist, socialist, Marxist direction. And the Marxist movement is completely supported by our government. We live in an oligarchy. We have lost our amendments. We have lost the 10 amendments. They're gone. They're simply gone. How can we, as a people, remain free if we don't have the first 10 amendments, which really basically forbade the government from doing anything? And I point out to people that the first 10 amendments are really thou shalt nots by the federal government, to the federal government. We retain our rights given to us by God. But the first 10 amendments are those lock and key statements that say, by the way, you can't do this, you can't do that, because it's telling the government what you cannot do. We've lost all of that. The government is treading with hobnail boots over every single one of the first 10 amendments.
Yeah.
And we've lost them all. And it cannot be more clearly illustrated than what's going on with the J6 prisoners in Washington, D.C. as one example. But that's just an illustration of it. We have a border that not only does the federal government refuse to support the law, but they're actually at war with the American people, inviting over 1 million people to come in last year. That they want to destroy this country. They want to bring us into a world system, and it's an oligarchy that's ruling in D.C. Now, I'm asking the question, how are we going to fix that? Is an election going to do that? Are we going to change that up by saying, okay, now we have a President Trump or one like President Trump in office, and now we're going to shut the border down, and now we're going to be energy independent. We're going to get out of the Paris Climate Accord. We're going to get out of the United Nations. We're going to get out of those world deals. We're going to quit jumping into every war in the world. We're going to stop all of that. Is that how it's going to go? Is that going to go peacefully? I say, if you think it's going to go peacefully, I think that you're not paying attention. Wake up and smell the coffee, because when Trump was elected, within 20 minutes of his election, the Democrats were hollering for his head. They were hollering for impeachment. Within 20 minutes, he hadn't even gone to D.C. yet. He hadn't even taken a position in the White House. They were already calling for his impeachment. And we have by the way, we have a parallel government working in tandem with the government now. That is when Trump was in office. When Trump was in office, the government ostensibly visually was a Republican-controlled government. But that's really not what controlled anything, was it?
Right.
We had 2 sham impeachment trials. We had bugging of the president's office by another set of government officials. We have people who are never going to go to jail for it. Hillary Clinton's had been indicted completely on these things, on all these charges, and we knew it then. But she's not going to be punished. And the people that are going to be punished are people who are peaceful protesters, such as the J6 protesters, and they're treated like they're they're treated like they're enemies of the state. And but that's what's happening. Just the same thing's happening in Canada.
Yeah. When you said that the last time you were here, I was surprised to hear it. But when I really thought about it and looked at what's happening, I realized that this country, this world really, but this country would never change. You're right. We would never come back. And I said to the people at one of my church services that the world is not going to change. But if we return to the Father, we return to God, we can change. And that way we can live in this world with not being of it, without being of fear. But the world itself is not going to change. And what I realized too, I remember when Donald Trump was there and he was doing the best he could do, there were people who pretended to love him. They were following him. They were, all into Donald Trump. And as soon as he said something or did something that they didn't agree with, they quickly turned on him. And even though not even realizing Donald Trump was dealing with the liberal media, they were against him. The Democrats were against him. The rhino Republicans were against him. The never Trumpers were against him. There were people that had stayed in his administration that were left over from Obama administration, they were secretly working against him. And in spite of all
Right.
that, the people who pretended to be with him turned on him when they disagreed with one thing. And it made me realize that real change would come when the hearts of human beings change from evil to good. Then I believe we can have a chance, but I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Well, even if it does, it may be, and I don't know that this is the case, and I'm not saying that we are right at that point, but even if there was a major reformation, restoration back to God by people and repentance by the American people for such practices as abortion and being and legislating homosexuality into the code of the United States law for the first time in the world history. Let's say that we reverse that, and that's going to be a peaceable transition. First of all, people are going to say, I don't know about that. Well, let's say that it will be. You know what? In the Old Testament, King Josiah came to the throne after the northern kingdom had gone to captivity, and he himself initiated a great restoration, and he had everybody come to Jerusalem that were left in the northern tribal areas. But God had already stated, the time is done. You've gone too far. You've done so much wickedness in Judah. You've done so much violence. You have so much shedding of blood in Judah through the past kings that I have already slated for your demise. So even though Josiah brought a great reformation, and you can read about it in 2 Kings, God still said, too little, too late. And Josiah was taken out of the way in a war in the Valley of Megiddo when he fought against Pharaoh Necho, the Egyptians marching north. So the point simply is that is a real possibility. Plus, you think about Romans chapter 1, where God says as clearly as can be stated that homosexuality, when we have that in a society, and we have it now not simply practiced in society, we have it now ingrained in law for the first time in world history. Ingrained in law. God says very plainly, I've given that society up. I want people to explain to me how when God gives a society up, that society can still stay afloat.
Amazing.
How can it still stay afloat?
Yeah, amazing. Very interesting times, Bill. I want to ask you about what's happening in Canada right now. Yesterday, the Canadian government approved Justin Trudeau's use of the Emergency Power Act. Trudeau has said he will keep the power despite reports that there are no longer any active protests. That's according to Breitbart. When you think about all that, Canada now has a dictator.
Right, they have a dictator. So the same thing is going to take place in America. But I want you to think about that. What's happening there in Canada. They have suspended any kind of rights that people have, such as no unreasonable searches and seizures, which our Fourth Amendment protects. No right to jury, those kinds of things. All of that is completely gone. We have martial law taking place in Canada, and we have no freedom of assembly. We have no freedom of speech in Canada. There's not any of that. There's no freedom of assembly. There's no freedom of gathering together to protest anything. And at the same time, to show the complete and utter and abject hypocrisy of the Trudeau government, just as we're going to see and as we are seeing in the Biden administration, just as we see that in Trudeau, for example, in Western Canada, they have had a pipeline that's being constructed, over 400 miles of pipeline in order to bring natural gas to places that need heating. But there are some eco-terrorists, the greenies, are out there destroying property, millions of dollars of damage. With just maybe a handful of people, maybe 20 to 30, 40, 50 people destroying property, trying to kill people. They're armed and dangerous, and they're trying to hurt the workers out there. And yet we don't see any emergency powers on that one. That's exactly what we have the picture of America. We can have over 600 riots in America with the Black Lives Matter pronounced Marxist movement. That's what it is, a Marxist movement. And everybody simply says, just as the liberal press in Canada says, well, we can understand how people are upset about certain things. And that's exactly what they say in America. Well, we understand that they don't like that, Michael Brown was shot. They don't like that George Floyd was killed. So we're going to let them destroy property and destroy and damage police stations and have complete riot. That kind of stuff, they let that go. But you people, you mask up, and if you're in a church building, you shut the doors and you don't worship anymore as a congregation.
Yeah.
But we're not going to tell the BLM rioters to stay home. No, see, this is what's happening. And that's what people need to realize. Our government completely favors the Marxist movement in America, the Black Lives Matter, against the law-abiding citizens. So when the truckers are going to go to D.C., we'll see the same type of thing happening if we have the same type of turnout for the truckers.
I saw in Canada videos of when this guy Trudeau declared emergency there. I was stunned. Well, I was stunned to see that these police were riding horses, and they just went into the crowd and ran over the people with the horses, stepped over men and women, and also. They were arresting the truckers. The truckers wasn't doing anything. They even arrested. Right, that's all they were doing. And Trudeau said, before he did this emergency thing, he said he supported Black Lives Matter. And as you said, Black Lives Matter is an evil, radical organization that hate God. Yeah, they hate everything good. But yet, they took innocent people in Canada and here in this country and just stomped all over them, take away all their rights. But I noticed, Bill, that they will only do it to the whites for the most part in Canada and in America, and the blacks are allowed to get away with it. And I've noticed that it's mostly, even though mixed crowd of different color people there, but it's mostly white people who tend to stand up and fight for freedom, whereas other people don't tend to do that in this country. Am I seeing that wrong?
Well, no, I think there's far too many people not standing up, period, all across the country. I mean, we're just not, for one thing, this is what socialism does to a people. Think about this. Socialism actually corrodes the spirit of a person.
Yeah.
The people that are the working class of America, whether it be the middle class whites, whether blacks or white, whatever, the middle class, they're the working. We have to work 2 and 3 jobs to maintain any kind of lifestyle that our parents did, and to maintain a huge segment of society that refuses to work. And this segment of society that refuses to work on welfare, as you know very well, the Black community was absolutely hamstrung, and the soul was taken out of it in the 60s by LBJ's Great Society, destroyed the family. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, LBJ made it a point to take the fathers out of the home and specifically mandated that there's no fathers in the home in some of the places that he had. They don't want fathers in the home. Yeah. The government wants to be the daddy. So when you have a segment of society that has become so corrosive, such as that, and whether it be whatever, black or white, but the Black community has been completely corroded by socialism. Yeah. That's exactly what's taking place. So they respect not God, they respect not man, and that's what's happening in society. And they are, of course, the useful people that are being used by the Marxists to control everything. On the other hand, many of the others on the other side of the fence, we have the people that are working, and they are working 2 and 3 jobs, and they have very little time to do anything. Yeah. We're barely, right now, we're lucky to run to the store and get bread when it's put up on the shelves because it's becoming scarce. I mean, we're working 3 jobs to maintain a family. That's what's happening. Amazing. Last time we had you here, you expressed that, no, that's the wrong one. I wanted to ask you about the conservative. My producer was telling me that even there are conservatives now. Let me see here. Did you take it out, Nick? Oh, here we go.
with footage is showing police crackdown on a peaceful protest in Canada and shutting down businesses here in America, conservatives are no longer bagging the blue, meaning that there are conservatives who are no longer thinking it, bagging the police. Are you surprised by that?
I am. I just think that they're really not conservative if they're not backing the police. And let me add one thing about the police here, if I may, Jesse.
Okay.
What we see in Canada is a good reason why the police need to be locally controlled and only locally controlled. This is why Barack Obama, when he got in office, he stated very plainly that he wanted to have a national police force of sorts that was larger or just as large as a National Guard. He wanted to have this police force already. Why is that the case? Because what's happening in Canada is exactly what they have planned for America, and he wants a police force at his beck and call.
Yeah.
Instead of that, our founding fathers already saw that coming. They already foresaw what the Barack Obamas and the Joe Bidens were all about. And they said, you have to have a police force that is locally controlled, locally elected sheriffs, locally elected sheriff's departments, and not federally controlled. That way is the only way that you can maintain freedom at a local level. If you don't, if you have a national police force, then you're turning into Nazi Germany right now. And that's what we're seeing in Canada. We have and I don't know where all the police force in Canada, how they answer and what they answer to and who's national and who's local. But when we have federal monies pouring into the police departments and controlling the police departments, just as they do the schools, we have a major problem because they're no longer locally controlled. And that's what we need to have and maintain. And the local sheriff's department is our last hope, really, in America, where we have local sheriffs, local law enforcement saying, here's what citizens of Wichita County or Los Angeles County, here's what we're going to do. I don't care what the federal government says. The president can't overstep him. So when Barack Obama came into office, the first thing he did, he put federal agents in Maricopa County, Phoenix, Arizona. Joe Arpaio was a great sheriff in Arizona, in Phoenix, Arizona. In Maricopa County, he put in his federal agents, and they started combing through his offices and trying to find some kind of dirt on him and breaking it up. And, finally, they had such a campaign against Joe Arpaio, they finally got him out. Why were they so interested in Joe Arpaio? They know that the last defense for freedom is a local sheriff's office, local law enforcement, and they got to get rid of those guys that are constitutionally minded.
Amazing. You mentioned how they have, in our country now, they have laws that say that homosexuality is fine, they could get married and all that crap. What's really weird to me, too, is there's this guy, Bruce Jenner, right?
I do.
You know who he is.
I know of him. Yeah, I do.
Well, on Fox News and other local channels, when they are interviewing him, they call him a her, a she.
Right.
And they have this one talk show on there where it's headed up by 3 or 4 women, and then they bring in a guy. So it'd be like these women and one guy, right? And so one day they had 3 women, including Bruce Jenner and a guy, in this little debate thing. And they would call the Bruce Jenner a her or a she as though they didn't know it's a male in a dress and not a real woman. What is causing conservative media to go along with it and call a man a woman when it's really a man? What is making them do that?
Yeah. Well, I think the conservative media is only conservative to a point that is only on a political spectrum as far as policies coming out of Washington, D.C. or coming out of the state of Texas or California. They're conservative on that spectrum. But as far as what we consider conservative, and I consider conservative, and you do, a biblical-oriented conservative, they're not. And therefore, homosexuality is accepted, and so is transgenderism on Fox News. I'm not saying that people ought to be ugly to Bruce Jenner.
Right, me either.
Talk down to him and talk ugly to him and so forth. But the idea to go along with what I consider to be, and and by the way, was considered to be by the American Psychiatric Association through the 1970s to be a mental problem, to go along with it and just pretend it doesn't exist. That is the problem. And I think that's also something that's really going to deteriorate our moral ideas and moral code. The moral fabric of America is fraying, and that's helping that to fray.
Yeah. There was another guy in the news now where he supposed to have became a woman, and
Right.
and it's been reported that he raped a young girl or something, but because he was going as a she, he was able to get a low sentence when they put him in jail. They found out they put him in jail,
Right.
and they lowered the sentence to something like 2 years or so like that. And he was bragging about it. Apparently,
Right.
he was, according to the report, he was talking to his father from the jail by phone, and he was bragging about the low sentences he got because he pretended to be a girl. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. And that was in Los Angeles, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that in Los Angeles?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe so.
I think so. You know what? If they had tough sentences, I'm not suggesting that we ought to publicly hang people.
Right.
But let's say we have a death sentence for such crimes as that, as the Old Testament prescribed, and they were done in a very quick fashion. That is, 6 weeks window, and that was all done.
Yeah.
Giving them a fair trial, and then, okay, you do that once or twice, do you know what would stop? We'd stop those boys running into girls' bathrooms and assaulting those little girls. We'd stop it right now.
Yeah.
But we don't have the backbone in America to levy punishment.
Amazing. Bill, let me take one quick break. When I come back, we'll finish this up and
Okay, that'd be fine.
give out your information, things like that. I got to take a quick break. Bill Lockwood is here, American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. Riding for the Bible brand. Riding for the Bible brand. You can find him at AmericanLibertyWithBillLockwood.com. Back in a moment. Bill, and then I'll let you give out your information here. What do you think about this thing that they're supposed to be doing in the Ukraine? Look like they want to go to war, or they're pretending to be going to war. What's your impression of all that?
Once again, you know what? We have no business inserting ourselves around the globe in all of these situations. Isn't it amazing that we are $30 trillion in debt? We can't protect our own borders. We don't want to protect our own borders. The government does, but we want to go over there and shut down the borders over there. That's absolutely crazy. And it's crazy because we are showing, or at least our government officials are showing, what we're made of. And that's exactly like, let me just bring in this real quickly before we conclude, Jesse. I wanted to say something about the J6 prisoners.
Okay.
You know, the J6 prisoners are in prison in over 1 year. Most of them have had no charges more than simple trespassing. The conditions in which they are living are absolutely reprehensible. They're been mistreated. They're maltreated. They're not allowed visitors. We're violating all the amendments. Remember, I talked about the amendments. No excessive bail is the 7th Amendment. They haven't even allowed them to have bail. No visitors. Some of them are in solitary confinement and have been for a long time. And the only time that any charges were even begun to be brought was when Marco Rubio got up on the floor of the Senate and said, look, he kind of mocked the people for talking about, he said, we're about to be taken over. We about lost the government to a man with a horned hat, and kind of mocked the liberals on that. So Merrick Garland, who's one big liberal, and he himself, he brought charges against maybe a few of them, but most of them are held on simply with no convictions, mind you, no convictions at all. And yet they're held there over a year. And the charges brought against them are no more than simple trespassing. We have lost our first 10 amendments. If the government, this is a micro picture of what Biden wants to do to the entire country. Make no mistake, that's exactly what he wants to do. That's what he's about. He's not able to do it here in Wichita County, not able to do it in perhaps Maricopa County in Arizona, but he's able to do it in D.C., and that's exactly what the Democrats are doing.
Amazing.
This is an oligarchy, and that's what's happening to our country.
Well, the Republicans, they are not fighting against that either. They are allowing the Democrats to do that to the protesters, and while at the same time, murder, robbing, raping, and all kinds of things are happening in the country, and they have no bail for the people. The people go in and out of jail and no bail,
Right.
but they're holding down people who had a peaceful protest. It's mind-blowing for me.
Right. And, there was an article by, his name is Kimball, and it was in the Imprimis magazine put out by Hillsdale College. And he pointed out correctly that this is all, the J6 situation is a hoax. It's all a hoax, and it has to be maintained as an insurrection. That's the hoax. It was not an insurrection. I'm not suggesting that it's good to break into the Capitol or go through a police barricade, but no one was injured except Ashley Babbitt killed. And you think about what happened. The police officer that shot Ashley Babbitt, he was not even interviewed by lawyers. He was not taken to task on what he had done. Compare that for a moment to Darren Wilson in Ferguson, Missouri, who was actually attacked by Michael Brown, a 275 guy that was trying to kill him, and he shot him. And compared now, Darren Wilson, actually, he was trashed. He is no longer able to be a police officer. He has to go into hiding. This is what's happening in America, and people need to wake up. But what's happening to the J6 prisoners, and by the way, what you made mention of, the fact that most of the congressmen, about 200 of them, have had nothing to say about it.
Yeah.
There's a handful that have, and one of the great heroes is Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
This woman, boy, she is one girl with a backbone.
A country
Louis
girl.
Gohmert helped her out too, but the rest of them, she finally was able to get in there after long periods of time. If you think about that, a congressman could not even get into the prison to visit to see what was going on. And if you could read the tweets of the woman who is in charge of the prison, that is the warden, boy, I tell you what, you'll see what's going on. You see some acidic, nasty, violent mongering person there against the conservatives, and they don't intend to lighten up. And that's what Joe Biden has planned for the entire America and anybody who protests.
Yeah.
So truckers who go to D.C., I hope they do. But here's what's going to happen. If they drag them out, they'll be in J6 prison again. That's what's happening.
I heard a report, in Canada, they have frozen the assets of the protesters, right? They can't can't get their money out of the bank or put money in. They can't receive it by donations. And I've been told that they have done that to some American citizens too in this country, where they're frozen their money. They can't put money in the bank or they can't receive money from certain online companies. Are you aware of that?
Right. Yes. Yeah, I am. And you know what? Not only that, but Joe Biden has wanted to be able to be alerted to any $600 plus transaction that anybody has in a personal bank account.
Yeah.
It's just, this is totalitarian oligarchy stuff is what it is. And that's what we're facing. And if anyone thinks that we can come out of this peacefully by simply wait till the next election and get another administration in office, I think that we're going to be seeing some serious trouble in America, really. I wanted that to happen. I want to have a great election. And I'm not saying don't do that, but I'm saying if you think that it's just going to transition peacefully, going to 180 degrees the other direction, I think you're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, they're still going after the Great White Hope. They're trying to stop him. They have not let up on him yet. They're still going after that man.
Oh, you know what? There's a man, I've forgotten his name, a man running in, I think it's South Carolina, a congressman running for, I think it's re-election. But since he was present at the J6 protest, the Democrats in that state are trying to almost very close to canceling his ability to even run for office. Now, that's scary.
Yeah, I saw a report.
This is what the Democrats are about. They're cousins with Adolf Hitler is what they are.
Yeah. I saw that report. It was mind-blowing to hear that they could even consider doing something. They don't want him on the ballot. They won't let him get on the ballot so that he could be voted for.
You can be a Kamala Harris and you can bail the BLM people out of jail.
Yeah.
Or you can be a person that's a part of it, such as Maxine Waters going to BLM, right? You can be part of that where there's just tearing down and burning police stations down, and you can show up there as one of those persons. But boy, oh boy, don't you even show up at Washington, D.C. and stand there in a patriotic song being sung in the background. and now they're going to cancel your ticket and ability to run for office. We've got oligarchy in place in D.C.,
and
that's what's taking place.
What's weird about it, Bill, because they're attacking mostly white people, they already got the blacks. They are able to use the word racism or white supremacist, and they use those two words, and they are able to convince the people that they are right because these people are white supremacists. These people are racist. And so the people are not seeing the whites as American citizens, those who are standing up and fighting. And they're fighting for the country, and for them, they see them as racist, and they go along with the government. It's the darndest thing I ever seen.
Well, I don't know if you saw this or not, but the DHS just the other day, I bet about 2 weeks ago, came out and amended their statement as to what is an insurrectionist and who are those that are enemies of America and committing treason. And they're putting their finger on individuals who do not go along with the government, who are opposed to what the government is doing. They're causing trouble in America. And they're talking about you and me. That's what they're talking about. And the DHS is already laying out the plan to highlight us as we are the problem, just as Obama did when he first came into office. You remember the big flap, the DHS memo that came out saying, watch out for returning veterans. They are the ones who we need to be suspect about because they're the problems here. Well, I tell you what, people got enraged. Well, the DHS has done the same thing again regarding conservatives and those who are opposed to the government-driven narrative. And that's dangerous. This is what they're doing. They're setting us up to be treasonous and setting us up to be people who are not going to be participatory in government at all.
What a mess.
It is a mess. Stand strong.
Bill, that's right. Bill, tell the folks how to get to your website and whatever you're doing, because I want them to also help support you.
Well, thank you for that. Well, the website is American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. It's a .com address. And there's a button there to donate if you can and will. That'd be great. Of course, it's a weekly show, and so it airs on Saturdays here in Wichita Falls, and then on Sundays in Lubbock and Abilene. But it's also on YouTube. So it's a nationwide program once a week on YouTube, American Liberty with BillLockwood.com. And so that's the radio show. The radio show is American Liberty with Bill Lockwood, and then the address for the website is .com. And that's the primary one that I do. I do writing for the Bible brand. I haven't shot one of those in a little while, kind of changing up some things in the background as far as the staff behind it. So, but anyway, that's where you can reach me at that particular address.
Amazing. In closing, as a result of critical race theory and all this mess they're teaching in the public schools now, I saw a report where homeschooling numbers have gone up, that more and more parents are starting to homeschool their children rather than send them to the public schools.
You know, that's a positive development out of the pandemic.
Yeah. When
the pandemic occurred, people turned more to homeschooling, as well as the fact that they were started looking at what was going on in the public schools and seeing, wow, what in the world is my child being taught? Yeah. Discovering that. So now a lot of parents have awakened to that. And the the homeschoolers numbers have more than doubled within the last year. Yeah. It's just exploding because people realize, even though, for example, in Virginia, where the governor says, take the masks off, here's a governor's mandate, take the masks off, the local school districts are more beholden to a totalitarian ideal and the NEA, a national organization. And so they say, no, we're keeping them on. So you have big fight at the local level. That's happening in Virginia, for example, out in Cali, Virginia. It's happening in a lot of places. But but people are waking up to that. And so that's a good development from the pandemic.
It is. I was really happy to hear that because I can't understand why the parent won't at least protect the children from it, knowing what was happening or is happening. So I was glad to hear that the homeschooling numbers are going up. That is an amazing story.
Right.
Bill, thank you so much. Thank you for staying over. I absolutely appreciate it. And if the Lord is willing and the creek don't rise, we'll see you soon.
Okay. Lord bless you, Jesse. Thank you for having me today.
Right on. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, Bill, bye-bye.
Bye now. Bill Lockwood, you can find him at American Liberty with BillLockwood.com, folks. Check him out, support him. Bill Lockwood, American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. All right? Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.